As part of restoring trust to the prosecutor's office, I wanted to make sure we were following best practices in the area of domestic violence. And Division Chief Tiffany Kaeo had pointed out to me several months ago that we were in the minority of jurisdictions across the country in our office's practice of having a no-drop policy. This policy had been in place for 30 years. And what it meant was the police would make arrests, and they have mandatory arrest policies. Virtually all the cases would get charged, and then the prosecutor's office would proceed with the case and would not drop it regardless of whether the victim wanted to testify or not, what danger she felt she was in or not. The office just plowed ahead. And so, based on what she had said, I did my own research across the country. I talked to folks in the National District Attorneys Association, the Association of Prosecuting Attorneys, and discovered that we were one of like 3 jurisdictions, and I mean 2 small jurisdictions in Georgia apart from us, that still followed a mandatory, rigid, no-drop policy. So we talked to our victim witness counselors, we talked to experts in the field, like Nanci Kriedman, the CEO of the Domestic Violence Action Center, and we discovered that there's a different way to do it. And so our policy changed. So we no longer have that rigid no-drop policy. We are now listening to the victims. It's much more victim-centered. And we're finding out whether the victim wants to proceed or not. Does the victim want to testify or not? And we take all that into consideration, and in many cases are not going to proceed if usually she does not want to testify, does not want to proceed. But at the same time, we realize how important it is for victims to get services. And that means from the very beginning. And they'd get services in the past, but we wanted to make that system better. And so that's what we're here today to talk about, is an exciting new approach in that direction. And I'd like to call on Nanci Kriedman, the CEO of the Domestic Violence Action Center, up here to talk about this new approach.
So the importance of collaboration and system reform cannot be overstated. The ways in which the system can be improved to better serve survivors and island families are many and varied. So we are seeking always opportunities to create a more effective, responsive system. So this opportunity to collaborate with Steve and his team at the prosecutor's office is a dream come true. There is no way that any one of our private or public agencies can do this work alone. We must do it in partnership with one another. So at the invitation of Steve and the team at the prosecutor's office, we developed a partnership where our staff is available to provide that early outreach, which is key to safety, well-being, and engagement by island families. So we thought Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which is October, was a good time for us to lift up the importance of this collaboration and for all of us as a community to reflect on the work that we as a community are doing and must do going forward. So we asked the community to join us in looking around them, seeing who may need support, who may need referrals, who may need safety planning, and to reach out to us at the Domestic Violence Action Center or other domestic violence programs that live and work in the community in service to island families. Safety for survivors and accountability for abusers, and the promise for the future really belongs to all of us. So our gratitude to Steve Alm and the full team and their resources means everything to us at the Domestic Violence Action Center and to the community as a whole. So.
Thank you, Nanci. I'd like to call on Tiffany Kaeo. She is the division chief of the family division where all the domestic violence cases are handled, both misdemeanors and felonies. And her section is working very closely with Nanci and her staff on this implementation. So, Tiffany?
As prosecutors in cases of domestic violence, we know that victim safety, access to resources, and holding offenders accountable are all important priorities. And we also know that domestic violence cases are some of the hardest cases to prosecute. And that's why we're pleased to partner with the Domestic Violence Action Center. This collaborative effort will help the prosecutor's office as we take a more victim-centered approach to how we prosecute these cases. We know that early contact and consistent contact with victims is an important piece to successful prosecution. And with the employee or the members, advocates from the Domestic Violence Action Center in our office helping to reach out to victims, we are hopeful that this partnership with DVAC will help empower victims and support our efforts as prosecutors to pursue these cases and hold offenders accountable.
Domestic violence, it cuts across every ethnic group, it cuts across every socioeconomic level in our society. It is always a challenge, it is always there. So we have to try to do a better job of meeting that challenge, of trying to keep victims safe, survivors safe. And working together with the Domestic Violence Action Center is hugely important to do that. They're a leader in the field, they've been at this for 30 years, but they're always changing, they're evolving, they're finding new ways to help support victims. Just as we got to step it up and try to find new ways to prosecute these cases. And just because something had been done, a policy had been done for 30 years, doesn't mean it's the way to go in the future. We got to be flexible enough to look at it, and if things are not working, which it was not working, we've got to do a better job moving forward. So we're really excited about this partnership, and getting people actually in offices next to each other, talking to each other, working together is so much more impactful, and it allows things to work a lot better.
Not considering ourselves embedded in the prosecutor's office, we are very much a community-based organization. We are lending our expertise to the survivors who have been engaged with the criminal justice system. Not everybody wants to rely on the criminal justice system for help. So in their wisdom, the prosecutor's office and Steve's wisdom recognized that collaboration would be the best way to provide those survivors who don't want to go forward with prosecution, but still need support, safety planning, making difficult decisions, effective parenting, protecting their children. So those are some of the things that our staff do on a routine basis. But we clearly are not helping law enforcement pursue abusers or even target survivors. Our work is very separate, but that's the beauty of a collaboration. We can do what we do best, and they can do what they do best.
And I think it's important to note that we have victim witness COCUA service counselors in our office, but they can only be involved in a case when it's an active case. And so being more victim-centered, listening to the victims, if they know, because they know how dangerous the situation is or not, and if they say, you know, I just don't want to proceed at this point, and I'd rather not testify, we may well not proceed with the case. We'll move to nollie pros or dismiss the case without prejudice. The court will typically do that, and then if it happens again, we can bring both the new case and the old case back. But as soon as we nollie pros the case, our victim witness counselors cannot be involved in the case. But groups like the Domestic Violence Action Center can carry on. They may have developed a relationship that's separate and apart from any prosecution to provide safety plans and counseling and discussion. But if we get ourselves out of the situation because we're dismissing the case, the Domestic Violence Action Center counselors will be able to carry on and keep up that relationship. And people are going to need support services whether or not the case proceeds to prosecution or not. That's really important for victims to know, that they've got a friend there, a counselor, somebody who understands the system, who can help them regardless of what happens in court. So anyway, we will continue to work with the Domestic Violence Action Center. We'll see if there are other parts of collaboration that can work. We just got to be flexible to be as effective as we can, because domestic violence is a huge problem in our community. It can affect, different races, different ethnicities, different genders, people relating to each other, and we want to be flexible about that.
I would like to add one thing, and that is that we have not seen change in our civil or criminal justice system in quite a long time. So with the new leadership that Steve brings and the potential for new leadership in the Honolulu Police Department, there's all kinds of ways that we can innovate and collaborate that we haven't seen for a very, very long time. And that is an incredible opportunity that should not be overlooked. We haven't seen any change, meaningful change, effective change, or appropriate change that has been in service to island families for a real long time. So this is a wonderful gift to the community.